Good morning. Episode 48 of Morning Buzz with the Energy Guy. My name's Tom Moore, and I am broadcasting, or actually recording live from the Farmers Electric Studio in Clovis, New Mexico. So, welcome, and I hope you get something out of today's episode. 48, that's almost a year, folks. We're doing one of these a week, and they drop at 7 o'clock a.m. Mountain Time every Saturday morning, most every Saturday morning. I have to qualify that because there's been about 3 or 4 weeks that over the last year that I couldn't or didn't take the time to do a show. I was busy or lazy or something. But man, it's hot outside. Oh my goodness. I mean, we have not had much moisture, so it's dry, and we're pushing 100 degrees for the last several days. I know it's just hardly bearable. So for a lot of you, maybe this is a good time to take a long weekend or maybe even a vacation. And if you haven't planned one yet, I've got some suggestions for you. But man, like I said, it might be time to get away somewhere where it's cooler and maybe a place with a little more moisture. Wouldn't that be nice? Folks around here, maybe something fairly close would be smart. Like I said a minute ago, long weekend. You know, for me and my family, it was, if we wanted a long week or as many as 5 or 6 days, we would typically just go to New Mexico mountains somewhere. And it's always cooler, and it's, you know, always get a mountain shower while we were there. We were blessed to experience a lot of those over the years. And my family really enjoyed Ruidoso or Cimarron area, Eagle Nest, and Cimarron, more specifically Cimarron Canyon, between Eagle Nest and Cimarron. Like, for instance, Toby Campground in Cimarron Canyon, not far. It's probably 15 minutes from downtown Eagle Nest or the Eagle Nest Lake. But yeah, nothing's more refreshing than the cool pines of New Mexico, at least for me. So if we weren't camping in Cimarron Canyon at, say, Toby Campground, which was one of our favorites, and we do a lot of fishing there, a lot of honey holes, we'd call them, you know, and kind of watch the stocking report and the fishing report and kind of choose weekend that would typically coincide with them releasing some fish into the Cimarron River. And they're always nice sized fish, and you know, a lot of my friends are catch and release guys, and I am too, catch and release in Greece. Hey. No, seriously, folks, there was one area I fished pretty regularly, and I always released my fish there. That was in Crisco Bay. Two in a row. And you know, one of my maybe my only avid listener is Tyler Smith. I told him what I was going to joke about already, so you know, he knew the punchline before we even started today's show. But I have a feeling he's still going to laugh, which is nice. He's got a great sense of humor. No, if I catch a fish, I'm typically eating it. My son caught a fish up in Michigan. It's a 5-pound bass. First bass he ever caught, and it's a 5-pound bass. Can you believe that? So he turns and looks at his buddy and says, "Hey man, how are we going to cook this?" And he goes, "We're bass fishermen. We don't cook those. We release those." So he was pretty disappointed, but man, it was beautiful. I need to post a picture of him holding the fish. I'll do that. I'll do that in the next couple of days. But yeah, Toby's beautiful. Like I said, they're pan-sized fish, and if you really want to release them, that's great, because then it'll give me the ability to catch them and then eat them. So thank you. I think that the typical state limit, I think, is 5, maybe 5 trout. So if you got, you know, let's do some math. If you got 3 fishermen, that's 15 fish. That's a pretty good little fish fry. But No, we had a blast there. If we weren't camping, we have stayed at the Laguna Vista Lodge in Eagle Nest, and supposedly that's haunted. I don't know. I think it was built in the late 1800s or early 1900s, but there are some, and I'm sure the locals will be happy to share the stories with you. Laguna Vista Lodge in Eagle Nest. And in Ruidoso, we always had the tradition of, if we weren't camping, trailer camping, we would stay at Innsbruck Village. You know, it's kind of Tudor style, probably built in the 70s, maybe early 80s. Little community of condominiums and townhouses. It's got a little 3-par, 9-hole golf course that they keep up. There's some water hazards. There's fountains in the water. Typically, there's elk and deer on the golf course. I mean, it is a beautiful time. They have pickleball courts. It used to be tennis courts. They may have saved one court as a tennis court. They've got a swimming pool for guests. They've got a pond there that they stock, and you don't have to have a state fishing license for that. It's a private pond, and I think they do limit it to 3 fish a day. I think you'd have to ask them, but you have to pay a little extra for that at the Innsbruck Village office. But we love it. And we've started a new tradition in my family, and it's my brothers. We call it a brothers and sister-in-laws weekend. So we do a long weekend. The last time was last year in the early fall. It was in September, I believe, and we stayed in Innsbruck, and we just had a marvelous time. The weather was so pretty. We got some reading in. We, start off maybe reading the Bible in the morning, and we'd have all our meals together. We cooked burgers out. I mean, it was just a great time, and a little R&R that we all needed. Everyone's retired but me. My sister-in-law, one of my sister-in-law is still working, but she'll be retired in the next 3 or 4 years. But so we're going to get together soon, or do some FaceTime and try to figure out when our next. And we want to do Ruidoso again. So there's shopping to be had. Oh, back to Eagle Nest. If you make the drive then to Red River, you'll likely see a pretty large herd of elk on the weather road, typically. Not too far, probably 10 or 15 miles north of Eagle Nest, or that turn there towards Red River. And while in Red River, of course, you got a beautiful old historic town to walk and shop in. But there's Capo's Pizza is pretty good. I think those guys that own that might have been from like New York or Chicago or something like that. So it's New York style or Chicago style pizza. All I know is it's good. But they're hit and miss on hours, so you got to be careful. Just check ahead. It seems like they weren't open for lunch, or they were just open for the early evening hours, like from 3 in the afternoon till 7, something like that. So kind of restrictive on the hours, but perhaps that they've changed that up a little bit. I think all those weird hours started maybe during COVID, but they may be back open most days now and for lunch and dinner now. I'm not sure, but yeah, Red River's a beautiful town to spend some time in, and we just love Ruidoso. Rio's, I think is the name of the pizza place there. We really enjoy that, and just a good time. And when I ask my kids, I've talked about this before. I asked my sons one year, one of my sons, I said, "Hey, what's your most favorite memories growing up?" And he's like, "Oh, let me see, Dad." He goes, "Well, probably like camping, hiking, what we used to call squirrel adventures." And I'm like, "What about all-star baseball and all that?" And he goes, "Oh, I hated that." He was an all-star. And I said, "Why is that?" And he goes, it wasn't family. And he goes, "Dad, what's important to me is family." And I took that to heart. And I think maybe perhaps some of that stuff's a little overrated, the sports and going on to the next level and traveling and just eating and breathing and sleeping, all these different things. And when come to find out the more simpler things is what the kids are most appreciative of, and the things that they remember fondly. Who needs coffee when you've got Morning Buzz with the Energy Guy? Morning Buzz with the Energy Guy is the only podcast awarded the prestigious Energy Star label. I say that kind of in jest. We don't really get the Energy Star label, but I like to think we do. You know, and I think if they did award it to the podcast, we would likely be the only one to receive it. And so our show is about energy efficiency or or electric safety. It is sponsored by an electric cooperative, Farmers Electric, here headquartered out of Clovis, New Mexico, in eastern New Mexico. We serve 11,000 square miles. Our picket fence is within 11,000 square miles. We have 7,300 members with a total of about 14,000 meters. So we're not giant, but we're not tiny either. But we've got a good track record of keeping the power on for over 88 years. Yeah, been around since 1938. This is when we were incorporated as part of the REA, which is celebrating 90 years this year, Rural Electrification Administration. And that's where the first loans for building out cooperatives and electricity to rural folks back in the late 30s into the 40s, the financing came in the form of low-interest loans through the REA. And there were members when I first started working 27 years ago with Farmers Electric. A lot of the older demographic still referred to us as the REA, even though it had been gone for several years. And had been the loans, the body of government agency that we get loans from now, or that are available to us. We use other lenders, banks, but we now borrow money from RUS, Rural Utility Services. And I think it's been that since maybe the late 90s, Rural Utility Services. RUS kind of took over where the REA left off. But let's talk about a little bit about electricity and inefficiency and savings, and maybe some practical things you can do if you are about to go on vacation or even for a long weekend. You know, when we're experiencing these warm, dry climates, and I guess your big energy goals before leaving are to reduce unnecessary electrical loads. And one way you can do that is minimize air conditioning runtime, keep the house from overheating excessively without creating moisture or security issues. Here's a little practical list that I put together, roughly in order of impact. HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning is what that stands for, if you ever wondered. Raise the thermostat rather than turning the AC completely off. I've never turned ours off. If you're going to be gone for a few days to a couple of weeks, maybe 85 to 90, I typically set mine about 85. That's a common setting. If you have pets, plants, or a temperature-sensitive item, you might want to keep it lower. Of course, always have somebody check on your pets if you're going to leave them behind. Make sure they've got food and water. And so maybe you've got a relative, maybe a teenager that wants a little extra spending money. That's a good way to make sure they get taken care of. And then just follow up with that person, maybe a neighbor. Follow up with that person, whether it be family or a neighbor, and say, hey, how's Benji, or whatever your dog's name is, or your cat, and make sure and check on them. If you have a smart thermostat, you could schedule it to cool the house for a few hours before your return, which would be nice. And if you do have a pet, maybe you keep it a little cooler. Maybe you go down to 80 degrees during the day, and then pump it back up maybe at night. Replace or clean the HVAC filters. That's something that you want to make sure is done before you leave. A clean filter reduces strain on the system when the system is running. And of course, that's a practical, idea without having to think, go on vacation. You just want to do that all the time. And that doesn't mean it's 15 after the hour. We need to pick it up just a little bit. And we do have this day in history coming up. But that doesn't mean changing your filter, every month necessarily. During the dirtier months, like spring or into the fall, actually past the fall into the winter months, the wind starts picking up, and that's when you can, get dirtier filters and that kind of thing. So just look at them, observe them every month, hold them up to light. If you see light through them and they look pretty clean, and you can't like knit a sweater out of the lint that's in one, then if you can, if it's that bad, obviously you want to change it. But a good filter is going to run you $8 a month, $8 to $10 a month. You don't really necessarily need to spend more than that. Just find something in that price range, and that's going to be good enough for you. Close the fireplace damper if you have one, unless it's being used for ventilation as well. I would always, if there's no fire being burned in the fireplace, close the damper. That's just a good rule of thumb. Reduce solar heat gain. This is something I talk about all the time, when you're home. But if you're not home, why not just close the blinds, curtains, or shades on windows that receive direct early morning and afternoon sun? If you have exterior shades or awnings, use them. They're even more effective. Leave interior doors open if you want to air circulate throughout the house. I suggest you leave doors open anyway, particularly if your HVAC is running, because your system is dependent on that area that measured in cubic feet, that space of a bedroom, for instance. Because most homes only have one or two return airs, and they're in a hallway typically on a newer home. And if you starve the system of air, adequate return air, it's going to make your system short cycle and could shorten the length of the equipment. So now there are some homes that are designed with return air in every room. Not many of them are like that. Then you can shut those doors all day long and don't have to worry about it. Our house was designed that way, and it's an old house. Our house is pushing 80 years, but it has return air in every bedroom. Let me see. Leave some lights on for security reasons. I always leave, make sure they're LED bulbs. But I always wanted to make it look like somebody's home, whether there's not or not. If you turn off all the lights and people, would-be criminals drive by and they see that, and maybe one of the cars is missing and there's just no activity, they may know you're not home and make your home a good target. So sometimes I have lights on, and most often at least two lights on. And then there are apps, that you can Bluetooth through the internet anyway, connect to your lights, and you can change your lights. You can dim the lights. You can turn them off. You can change the light that you've got on. There's a lot of new technology out there that makes this leaving the lights on pretty cool. A thermostat too, a smart thermostat you can remote in with your phone, and that's what I was saying earlier. If you've got your thermostat up high around 85 or 90, make sure and lower it just a few hours before you get home, so that when you get home, you're not just completely, cooking in your living room, and you'll be able to sleep that night, because you cooled it off significantly. Maybe you go back down to 77, 78 degrees, and then add some turn off all your ceiling fans, if you're not going to be home, because if you're not there, they're not helping you at all. Because ceiling fans really, and any kind of fan for that matter, you want to, in the summertime, you want to feel that comfortable draft. Okay, but if you're not there to feel it, it's not doing you any good. So make sure and just leave all those off. Eliminate phantom power. Unplug or switch off electronics that continuously draw power, such as TVs and streaming boxes, game consoles, desktop computers and monitors, printers, chargers that don't need to stay plugged in, audio equipment. A lot of this can be on one power strip, and you just want to turn those off completely, because a lot of those things stay hot. Like an LED 4K TV stays pretty warm, because the picture needs to come instantaneously, basically, when you turn the power back on. So it stays warm So it has a standby run level that does consume electricity. But if you're not there, for a long weekend or a week, just go ahead and turn it off. And if you have other things plugged into that power strip, just turn it all off. Water heating. Water heaters are often one of the largest energy users just behind your air conditioning. Set the water heater to vacation mode if it's available. Sometimes they're marked as cabin mode. Otherwise, lower the temperature or turn it off if you're going to be away long enough and your manufacturer's guidance allows for it. Let's see, I've got a few more things here. It's 20 after the hour. I do want to make time for this day in history. Refrigerator. If it's, let's see, make sure that the doors are well sealed. That's something to do whether you're going on vacation or not. Discard perishables that may spoil while you're away. That's important. You don't want to go home to a stinky house. And make sure your dishes are all clean and there's not, something soaking in the bottom of the sink that may have a putrid smell by the time you get back. Make sure all that stuff is tidy and clean. Don't change the thermostat on a refrigerator unless you'll be gone for a very long time. If you're going to be away for several weeks, and some people they travel extensively, particularly if they're retired, you can turn it off. If you empty it, prop the door open to prevent mold. That's, of course, you're only doing this if you're going to be gone for a length of time, say 6 months, or and you're gonna completely empty the refrigerator. Laundry and appliances. Run the dishwasher and washing machine before leaving so nothing damp is inside it. I mentioned that about the dishes. You want to make sure that the sink is clean of all those things. Leave appliance doors slightly ajar afterward, if recommended by the manufacturer to reduce odor. And that is true for most appliances. It'll trap that moisture in there and it'll become spoiled over time, or even to the extent of mold. So you want to try to avoid that. Lighting, turn off all unnecessary lights. And again, if desired, put 1 or 2 lamps on, timers maybe, or just leave them on if they're LED. They're not big consumers for security reasons. Okay. Ceiling fans, turn them off. We talked about this. Fans cool people, not rooms. That's a good thing to remember. Fans cool people, not rooms, and only use electricity when they're running. Okay. Pool or spa, shorten pump runtime if water quality allows. You definitely need to run your pump if you've got a pool. Now you don't have to run it 12 or 14 hours a day because you're not in it. And I think you could sufficiently run one for 6 hours a day. You could set it up on a timer, or you could have a neighbor or some relative, as they're taking care of the dog, they can check on the pool pump and make sure that maybe they want to run the net over it and get the leaves or bugs that might have fallen into the pool overnight. Use a pool cover to reduce evaporation, which is especially valuable in our dry climate. Lower on a spa or a hot tub, lower the spa temperature or enable it in vacation mode. Outdoor irrigation watering systems. Since you're in a dry climate, adjust irrigation for expected weather. So kind of look at the forecast. What is it going to rain for 3 days in a row? Just turn it off. Is it going to be dry for the next week? You might want to turn it on. Set it for watering early in the morning. Okay, something else to remember. 24 after the hour. If you'll be gone for more than 2 weeks, you might also shut off the water supply or at least the washing machine supply hoses. Because in the wintertime, that's not a bad idea too, because if you had a pipe burst while you were gone and you turned off the water supply, well, it's not going to completely flood your home while you're gone. Turn off the ice maker. Unplug additional electronics. Biggest energy savings. If you only could do 5 things. Number 1, raise the thermostat to 85 to 90 degrees. Put the water heater in vacation mode. Close blinds on sunny windows. Number 4, unplug entertainment electronics and chargers. That phantom load we talked about. Number 5, turn off ceiling fans and unnecessary lights. So, another thing my wife talks about, 25 after. I'm keeping better track of the time because last week it kind of got away from me and we went 40 minutes. My wife and I travel a lot together. We have a benefit through our daughter, through Delta Airlines. She works for Delta, so we get to fly for free. Isn't that awesome? But we have to fly on standby, which is okay for flying for free. But we have talked about this, and we haven't done it yet. We don't have a will. And so I would suggest if you're especially if you're traveling with your spouse together, and this might be morbid, but man, it's so practical. Get a will done, even if it's one. Some workplaces have wills that they will help you with. As a matter of fact, I think our workplace through cooperative.com, that if you're an employee of a cooperative, there's wills they can help you work through, and you don't have to pay all the legal expenses, but they're legal in all 50 states once they're filed. Lawyer's not going to charge you, an arm and a leg necessarily for a simple will. Obviously, you want to name, your benefactors and have the will in place and have somebody to oversee the will. I forget what that's called, but that way, if you've got children, to reduce the infighting and things like that. So, yeah, just you don't want your estate necessarily to go into probate. So have a will, have it filed, and it's only worth, something if it's filed, like in district court. So keep that in mind. I hope this stuff has helped you if you're considering one of these getaways. They're, and if you're just talking about a little long weekend or maybe 4 or 5 days, it's not going to break the bank if you go to one of these places I suggested, like Cimarron Canyon / Eagle Nest or Ruidoso. And there's other places to go. I just mentioned these because this is my experience, but look up that Laguna Vista Lodge. There's something about it being haunted. I was thinking that I saw an episode of Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters International or something like that, Ghost Hunters maybe, and they were at the Laguna Vista Lodge. July 11th, this day in history, here's some major events that happened. At 1533, that's been a while, Pope Clement VII excommunicated Henry VIII after Henry broke with the Roman Catholic Church. That was a big deal. 1804, Alexander Hamilton was mortally wounded in a duel with Aaron Burr. Hamilton died the following day. 1893, the first public school kindergarten in the United States was opened in Boston. Let's see, something a little closer to this time. 1979, the abandoned U.S. space station Skylab, I remember that, re-entered the Earth's atmosphere with debris falling all over parts of Indiana. I'm sorry, the Indian Ocean and Western Australia. I'm quite sure that nothing fell in the state of Indiana. It was the Indian Ocean and Western Australia. Notable births on July 11th. Excuse me, I've had a little tickle going. My allergies are kicking my rear end. I don't know about you guys, but whoo, man, just in the last week, it's been crazy. Notable births, 1274. Robert the Bruce succeeded William Wallace as the leader of the Scottish resistance. Robert the Bruce became King of the Scots in 1314 and served in that role till his death. 1767, John Quincy Adams was born. He was the 6th U.S. president and son of President John Adams. 1959, July 11th, Richie Sambora was born, of Bon Jovi fame, singer, songwriter, guitarist. In 1972, Michael Rosenbaum was born. He's a actor and podcaster, and he's probably best known for his role as Lex Luthor in TV Smallville. Let's see. Notable deaths. We talked about Alexander Hamilton. He died one day after his duel with Aaron Burr. Alexander Hamilton, I believe, was Secretary of State at the time, so this is crazy. Can you imagine that today? Secretary of State Rubio was challenged by, someone else within the government, to a duel. That was in 1804. 1937, George Gershwin died, and you remember him. He was composer, songwriter, pianist. Just very, very talented individual. 1989, Laurence Olivier, famous actor known for his portrayal of Heathcliff in 1939's Wuthering Heights. And Wuthering Heights was a novel by Emily Bronte, one of the Bronte sisters. And I remember reading that when I was a senior in high school, and we had to do a paper. I enjoyed it immensely. And then we watched the 1939 version of Wuthering Heights starring Laurence Olivier, and I think it became Sir Laurence Olivier. I think he was knighted at some point by the Queen. But he did a fantastic job and it's tragic. I mean, if you don't know anything about Wuthering Heights, it's really a tragic love story. But it was great. But to read it, we spent about a week in my English class as a senior in high school studying the family tree and kind of understanding who's who and where they came from and who's related to this person, who's related to that person, and you can start reading the book and better understand the novel. But apparently, and my daughter told me about this, there's a Wuthering Heights new movie from 2025 or 2026, but I think it's probably available now for rent on one of these platforms like Prime or Netflix or something. But it looks overly sexualized. I looked at it and I was like, I'm not sure if I want to mess the old classic up by watching this one or not, but I don't know, I might. And if I do, I'll do a review. In the meantime, thanks for listening to, and we'll see you next week. Morning Buzz with the Energy Guy. Take care.